is time to take you between the lines. Your host, Eric Edmondson, is getting ready to bring you stats and analysis from around the sporting world with a special guest on 98.7 for Radio.
It is Tuesday, March 25th, and you are tuned in to Between the Lines on 98.7 Roar Radio, WPCZ, LP, FM at the top of the hour. Welcome in, everybody. Eric Edmondson, your host, here with you. We're going to get it rolling with our straight-up sports talk with, honestly, not too many sports headlines from around the world, but one thing we do have to talk about is USC star Juju Watkins is going to miss the remainder of the NCAA season or the NCAA tournament after she tore her ACL. Very unfortunate. They're having a good run, and just, injuries happen. Injuries are hard to predict, and that's just a very, very tough sight for Miss Watkins and for USC. Wish her all the best in her recovery. Our topic for the afternoon, go ahead and get into it. Thursday is going to be it's going to be a big day because Thursday is opening day for the MLB. We finally made it. We are officially here. Of course, we had the Tokyo series a couple weeks ago, but no, this is going to be the big dance right here. We're going to start on Thursday. The 162-game march begins. The 6-month march begins, and I could not be any happier to have finally made it. And today, I've said on the show that I don't like predicting things, sports per se, but what I do say I like predicting. I like predicting what the divisions are going to look like, who's going to come out, who's going to be the better team in this scenario. I can say that it's not as, coin flip. It's not as Betty. It doesn't sound or feel as strange. So we're going to be talking about that later on, and also we're going to be welcoming our guest to talk about who we think is going to win the big awards, who's MVP, who's Cy Young. We got stuff to back that up. Stay tuned, because next up we're going to be breaking down the divisions and, of course, talking about the Dodgers. Can they do it all again? Is Shohei going to lead that charge? Will the Yankees be able to come back after having a hobbled now rotation and losing out on Juan Soto? And did the Mets' big offseason really make that team 10 times better, as many are predicting? We're going to break that down coming up next. But first, we're going to throw it to a quick break, so stay tuned here on Between the Lines on 98.7 Rural Radio, the student voice of Piedmont University. Welcome back into Between the Lines on 98.7 Rural Radio. Your host, Eric Evanson, here with you, getting ready to break down the divisions of Major League Baseball, who's going to come out on top, and why. We're going to start from the bottom to the top here. That way it's a little suspenseful for you folks at home. Let's start off with the AL East. Start with the AL. In fifth place, I have the Blue Jays coming in fifth place. I do not believe in this team. They have the last year of Bichette. They have last year of Vladimir Guerrero. And even with A-plus seasons out of them, I don't think this is a fantastic team put together. Anthony Santander is on the wrong side of 30. That was their big free agent splash after they couldn't land Sasaki and Ron Soto in the offseason. So having him play corner outfield in a team where they were having to deal with bad defense for the entirety of this core, they've had to deal with poor defense, and you go and sign another poor defender who's going to be DHing in just a couple of years. I don't understand that at all. Dalton Varsho is also out there in the outfield. Dalton Varsho trade has just worked out tremendously terrible for the Blue Jays. You trade Gabriel Moreno to the Diamondbacks, you think you're going to get a stud in Dalton Varsho. And Dalton Varsho is a fine player, but he's not the guy that they traded for, unfortunately. And, of course, you got George Springer also out there. I believe he's on the last year of his deal, so he's going to be saying goodbye to Toronto. But here's the thing. It's going to take a lot of things to go right for this Blue Jay squad, for things to go, their way in a very competitive division here. This is from MLB Network as to what they're going to need from perhaps Bo Bichette this year.
Who's a guy at a great spring training you think can have a good season?
Bo Bichette. I think if the Blue Jays are going to be relevant, they need that tandem of he and Vlad Jr. He's had a really good spring training. Last year, you could almost that was a forgotten year.
Yeah.
Battled a bevy of injuries last year. Be a free agent at the end of the year. And if the Blue Jays window is still open, it's going to have to stay open in 2025. If Bo hits, they're going to be in contention in the East. They've gotten some breaks with the injury to Garrett Cole with the Yankees. I think Bo Bichette bounces back and has a monster year.
Bo Bichette should bounce back, right? Bo Bichette's a very talented player. He should, by all accounts, bounce back because of that talent that he has. However, again, it's going to be needed to be A-plus seasons from Vladimir Guerrero as well as Bo Bichette. Vladimir Guerrero, the contract extension talks froze over because he wanted so much money. Vladimir Guerrero has not consistently shown that he is worth that $600 million price tag. He just hasn't. He has 2 very good years under his belt. Other than that, he's been rather inconsistent, got a lot of strikeouts, and he's got a lot of power. That's the type of player he is. He's not going to get that big contract that he wants, I feel. I think his market's going to freeze over this offseason. But that's neither here nor there. The rotation for the Blue Jays is also a little bit scary as well. They went and signed Max Scherzer to see if they could bolster that, but now he's working through injury trying to go into this year, just as he was all last year with the Texas Rangers. Now, I think Max Scherzer has fine numbers. He's still going to be a fine 4th or 5th guy, but it's not a guy you're going to get excited for. That the Blue Jays team, it just seems like they have all the trademark signs of a team that is in the last year of contention. And the reason I have them finishing 5th isn't because I think they're an awful team. It's because I think that they cannot compete in a stacked AL East, which above them are going to be the Tampa Bay Rays in my prediction. I like the Rays this year. I think they're going to finish around 500, maybe a couple games above 500, because I think they have a lot of pieces returning from injury that really hindered them last year. But again, they're just not enough to compete with the other horses in this division, which above them I have the reigning AL champs in the New York Yankees. Listen, the rotation injuries to them have absolutely blasted a hole in that rotation. Max Fried, they signed this offseason, is going to be their ace. That's the guy you turn to, right? You like that. You like Max Fried as an ace. But behind them, a lot of the pitching depth has gone away. Nestor Cortez is no longer in the Bronx. Traded him to the Brewers in exchange for Devin Williams, who is going to really help that back into the bullpen. The bullpen I'm not worried about. Rotation I'm a little concerned about. Garrett Cole's out for the entire year. Luis Gil you're not going to get until, I believe, 2 or maybe 3 months into the season, maybe 2.5 months into the season. So it's going to be really tough to contend in a very tough schedule for them coming out of the gate. And that lineup, you can dream upon it. You can really dream upon that lineup, I will say. But the thing is they're an Aaron Judge injury away from losing it. They are. We saw what happened in 2023 when Aaron Judge was out, which he has a tendency to do, very unfortunate, but we have to pencil in that Aaron Judge might hit the injured list. When he was out in 2023, they missed the playoffs. Now, what are they going to get from guys like Jason Dominguez? I don't know. But either way, I have the Yankees finishing 3rd. Above them are going to be the Red Sox. I love what the Red Sox did this offseason. They went and got some help for the lineup as well as the rotation, which has been the biggest thing for the Red Sox the past couple of years. They just cannot find a healthy rotation, and getting Garrett Crochet is going to help them tremendously. Then you have the Orioles. Love the Orioles. They're a good core. They just got to get it done in the postseason. In the Central, I have the White Sox, of course, the Tigers. They didn't do anything this offseason to bolster that playoff run. The Twins have not done anything in the offseason as well either. And the Royals, Bobby Witt Jr. is going to make the postseason again. The Royals are going to repeat what they did last season, but it's not going to be enough to beat the Guardians, who are going to win the Central. In the West, you have the Angels at 5th place. The Athletics, who I think are actually going to be a sneaky good team, but just not enough to compete in the AL West. The Mariners have a fantastic pitching staff. Then you have the Astros, and the Astros are carrying with them a future Hall of Famer and now left fielder in Jose Altuve.
Officially moving to left field. Julia, give us a preview of what to expect with Altuve in the outfield.
Yeah, I've covered this team a long time. This one's definitely new to cover Jose Altuve out in left field, and Joe Espada coming out and saying he is our primary left fielder. So this is happening. It's something he committed to over the offseason, and so far in spring training, I'm hearing, he's adjusting well. I got to watch it early on, and he was having a blast out there. But now that we're deeper in, and now that real games are close, I'm hearing great things about the work ethic and what he's working on. Now, he's got this.
So Jose Altuve moving out to the outfield. Great team player that guy is. And that lineup's going to be pretty good. Isak Paredes comes over from the Cubs in the Kyle Tucker trade. Him and the Crawford boxes are going to be fantastic. They're going to be magical. That rotation has some young guys in it that need to prove it. But either way, I think the Astros are coming in second. With the Rangers, due for a huge bounce back here. I think that lineup was really sick of the hangover last year. They're going to have a good rotation coming back. John Gray's always steady, but Jacob deGrom is a really big key piece top of that rotation. Of course, the thing with deGrom is, say it with me, folks, he has to stay healthy. But I do have the Rangers winning the AL West. In the NL East, I have the Marlins finishing 5th, the Nationals finishing 4th, like the Nationals, just not there yet, similar to the Athletics. The Phillies finishing 3rd and missing the playoffs. That might be a hot take for me, but Phillies missing the playoffs because I think that whole entire lineup's on the wrong side of 30. That rotation's going to be fantastic, and you can never count on a bullpen. You can never count on a bullpen being great. Bullpens are so volatile. That lineup really scares me once you get past the 4th spot. I don't think it's as reliable as people think they are. Then you have the Mets. The Mets did a lot for the lineup this season, but they didn't do a lot for that rotation. Clay Holmes is their opening day starter. I do not like that. They're very much worrisome, and I think a lot of people are overrating the Mets going in. The Braves are going to finish first. It's the Braves NL East. The Phillies took it away from them, but that was due to injury and underperformance last year with a bounce-back year and everybody back healthy. The Braves are still the best team on paper in the NL East and possibly in MLB. We're going to talk about that in a second. In the NL Central, we have the Pirates, the Cardinals, the Reds, the Cubs finishing second. A lot of people are high on the Cubs. I'm not. That rotation is still a little, or not the rotation. The lineup is still, in a word, mid. It's just not great as people think it is. And the Brewers, the kings of consistency, they're going to be back up there. Not stressed about the Brewers at all. And in the West, the Rockies are going to finish fifth place yet again after trading Nolan Jones for no reason at all, just because they felt like it. Then you have the Giants finishing fourth. I don't think they can do it. I think they have the roster to do it, but they haven't proved that they can with a good roster before. I think they're going to finish at 500. Padres right above them. Diamondbacks second. And, of course, folks, the kings of the West. You can't debate it. The Dodgers are going to finish in first place in the NL West. They went out and had one of the greatest off seasons in baseball history. Roki Sasaki, Blake Snell. You bring them, and Hyun-Sung Kim's going to be in AAA, but that's fantastic depth for them. I think they have a fantastic run at this, and you know what? They made their odds at repeating a lot better. Repeating in the MLB is a very tough thing to do, but they certainly did it. We're going to take a quick break and then welcome in our guest of the afternoon, Miss Vanessa Monzo, as she'll step into the studio. Keep it right here on Between the Lines on 98.7 Roar Radio, the student voice of Piedmont University. Welcome back into Between the Lines on 98.7 Roar Radio. Eric Edmonds, your host here with you, and with us is our special guest of the afternoon, Miss Vanessa Monzo. Vanessa, thank you so much for coming on.
Of course, thank you so much for having me.
So, Vanessa is in studio today, as I mentioned, and she is wearing her Dodgers sweatshirt, which we're going to open up with who the MLB thinks is going to be the MVPs and the Cy Youngs. Vanessa?
All right, so for the National League, obviously for the MVP, we have Shohei Ohtani. I personally like this. Of course, I like this, and I do think he has a very good shot of being the MVP for a National League. For American League, though, I was looking at the comments for this one, and people are very upset with who the MLB thinks it's going to be for American League. They did Bobby Witt Jr. That one I think is interesting because everyone's thinking it should be Aaron Judge. I think now that the Yankees also have Cody Bellinger, when he was with the Dodgers, he also won MVP, so I think he has a really good has a really good shot, I think, at also being the National League. Now for the American League. So for National League Cy Young, they have Paul Skeens, which I think that could be a good one. Mm-hmm. And then for American League, they have Tyreek Skubal.
Yeah. I agree with most of those. I have Aaron Judge as my AL, but Bobby Witt is right there. Yeah. Until Aaron Judge proves that he can't consistently go out there and hit 60 home runs, right? Then he's going to be the MVP. I mean, this is a Bonds-like run that we're seeing from Aaron Judge right now. I love the Bobby Witt pick. Now, if Aaron Judge hits the shelf at any point, which hopefully he doesn't, I want to see Aaron Judge play a full 162. But Bobby Witt has the second best odds, I would say. Now, for the NL-wise, I don't think Shohei is going to win it. Simply because I think Shohei is going to be back to double duty, pitching and hitting this year. And I think that he's going to miss a lot more days than people think he will. Now, he's a freak human being, freak athlete. But I do think that, him having to do both, people are going to have to level that a lot more. So I do have actually Juan Soto taking home the NL MVP for that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I do think, I have always said when we got Shohei and he was coming back from his injury, I don't want him to pitch. Granted, I know he can be a good pitcher, and it's like, for our money's worth, like you do want someone to have the double duty. But I think if he were to get hurt pitching again, we lose our best DH. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like, I'd rather him stay at DH. He's doing phenomenal as DH.
50 home runs at DH.
Like, I think with getting Roki and having Yamamoto, like, we don't really need, and we have Blake Snell. Like, I don't think there is a dire need to have Shohei. So, like, if it came down to it, like, I'd rather have Shohei be the DH.
I think that was a calculated effort by the Dodgers this offseason because you brought in two starting pitchers, well, technically three because Kershaw's back, of course. Yeah. So you bring in three starting pitchers in the offseason, and a lot of people were saying, well, how many pitchers are they going to carry? Well, you do have Blake Snell, who's more likely going to be at the top of that rotation, I would say, than Yamamoto. Sasaki's going to be around the 5 because he just has to prove it a little bit more. Tyler Glass now people forget about, and then you have Clayton Kershaw, and then Shohei Ohtani figures into there somewhere. I think that when you carry Shohei, and this would have been for any team that bought Shohei in the past offseason, you were going to have a 6-man rotation. That's just bottom line. They have an 8-man rotation because you forget about Bobby Miller, who had a fantastic year. Now, Shohei having to do double duty, he's going to need his days off. You need to have that days off, especially for that contract to work the way it is. Now, how long is Shohei going to pitch? I don't know. Doesn't matter for 2025. But that's why I picked Juan Soto. I think he's a much safer pick rather than Shohei for MVP. But yeah. But on the Cy Young wise, I think that they kind of hit the nail on the head. I mean, Tarek Skubal, I love Tarek Skubal. There's no indication to say that he's going to slow down. So I did pick him for my Cy Young of the AL. But for the NL, I picked Zach Wheeler. Okay. Zach Wheeler's been knocking on the door of a Cy Young for so long, and he missed out on it last year because Chris Sale was just so dang good. Every time Zach Wheeler has a Cy Young season, someone comes along and has a better one, it seems. I didn't pick Skeens because he hasn't shown he can do it over 162. That's the only thing. I just need to see over 162, and then you convince me. Heck, you might even convince me come June.
I think also it kind of helps the players but also hurts the players when they are the only star player on the team. Yes. And I think when it comes to Paul Skeens, who else is on the team going to pitch as great as he does? So it kind of puts him on this platform, but then you have to think about every other team in the league has pitchers that can match up. So I think when you look at it, Paul Skeens is great because he has no competition on his team to kind of beat him out for that position. Right.
Absolutely. And the only person close is Jared Jones. And that Pittsburgh rotation can get pretty interesting. The problem is Pittsburgh just doesn't spend money on the offense. I mean, that's a whole separate can of worms that we can't jump into right now. But Paul Skeens is just – there was a quote that came out earlier that was he's the best college prospect since Tom Seaver. And that's pretty true. I mean, he's one of the best pitching prospects ever. I mean, his ascent through the minors, I think he might be a more regarded prospect than Strasburg was when he was coming up through the minors because he just came up so dang fast. And what he's shown at the major league level to this point, this stuff is incredible. It's just about the length of it. How long can you run? Baseball is a marathon, not a sprint. And Paul Skeens, I don't know personally because we haven't seen it. If he's built for the marathon or the sprint, and he's built for either one or the other, that's absolutely fine. Like I said, I could be convinced come June that I'm wrong. But right now, I do have Zach Wheeler because he's more of a safe bet. He's more proven, and I do think that rotation in Philly, it's very much an iron sharpens iron situation. That rotation in Philadelphia is absolutely nails.
Yeah, I definitely do agree with the Paul Skeens because, I saw it with Bobby Miller. Bobby Miller was touching those high numbers for pitching, and he kind of tanked last season. He started off great, and then he was just not able to capitalize. And I think oftentimes people forget, teams are scouting. They're looking at what you can do, and so granted, when Bobby Miller first made his debut, and probably the same thing with Paul Skeens, it came to a shock to everyone, wow, this guy's good. But then you start to learn the pitchers, and then that's when it kind of starts to collapse, and that's where you see these pitchers okay, how are you going to rise from that? How are you going to, find something new that these teams don't know about you? And I think that's something both of them. I think just they're young pitchers. They'll figure it out. But that's something I think Bobby Miller is struggling with now because he has the opportunity to be great, but he's just not being able to capitalize and being able to adjust to when teams are learning how he pitches.
Absolutely, yeah. It's all a learning curve. And right now, we are at a point in the league, and especially in his league, in the National League, which you're going to see more of the National League, it is at an all-time talent level. Every team has a talent on there that is worthy of an all-star, and not just a pity all-star. Worthy of an all-star, especially in the lineup. Maybe there's 2 or 3 teams that don't have an all-star in the lineup. But a lot of the teams in the NL have 4 all-stars in the lineup. The Dodgers have 4 MVP candidates. The Braves have 3 MVP candidates. The Phillies also have, not 3 MVP candidates. They have 1 in Bryce Harper. I don't know if Schwarber or Turner are going to be winning any MVPs anytime soon. But still, that's a very tough buzzsaw to navigate through. And we're going to have to see it from Skeens, absolutely. And for Tarek Skubal, just to circle back on him, he did it again with the Tigers last year. He finally broke out. He was the stuff was there, right? But he finally broke out with the Tigers last year, led them to the postseason, which is definitely going to help your case if you do lead your team to the postseason. So I don't think there's any reason to think that Tarek Skubal can't do it again. So that was our picks. Well, Vanessa, did you give your picks for the MVP and Cy Young?
I mean, it's kind of hard. Granted, like, I think if Shohei, I don't know, because I agreed with last season and Freddie Freeman winning the MVP, and I think him coming back too, I think he pleads a pretty big case too. Like, granted, yeah, last season was in the past, but I think he also has the opportunity to be up there too in the candidates. And then American League, I do want to see, granted, Dodgers, but I do want to see Cody Bellinger kind of have another breakout season and coming back and being with the Yankees and maybe finding himself again. I mean, it was his dad's team. Maybe that gives him some fire.
Think Bellinger going to the Yankees was it was needed 2 years ago. It was needed before he went to the Cubs the first time.
Definitely.
And the fact that the stadium plays to his swing, I think being in a lineup where he's not super relied upon also helps as well. I mean, Cody Bellinger has the talent to be an MVP. We have absolutely seen that. In fact, we saw glimpses of it 2 years ago. It's just a matter of him changing up his play style and what that's going to look like translated to a new style of play with the Yankees. But again, like I said in the previous segment, that Yankees lineup, Cody Bellinger is one bad trip away in the outfield for Aaron Judge from being the guy that you relied upon, because you're not going to have Giancarlo in that lineup. And I don't know if the Yankees are fully on board with relying on Anthony Volpe or Paul Goldschmidt. Cody Bellinger is going to have, at some point in the year, is going to have a lot of pressure on him. But I do think for the majority of the year, he is going to be kind of cruising. He gets to be very quiet. I love what the Yankees pivoted to after losing out on Juan Soto, because they did have so much money to spend. So they go out and get the Max Fried. They take on the Cody Bellinger contract. They take on Devin Williams as well. They also shed a couple pieces that needed to be shed. But again, the Yankees, that lineup is very volatile, and I think Cody Bellinger is a big piece of that. I think Cody Bellinger can either have a fantastic season or he can have a bad season. I don't think he's going to have an in-between. I don't think you're going to look up at the end of the day and see that, Cody Bellinger, he had like a 105 WRC+. Like, he's either going to be bad or he's going to be good.
Yeah. Yeah, and I definitely do agree with the MLB picks for the Cy Youngs. I definitely like those two candidates.
Yeah, those two, they're pretty rock solid. Those are the two most talented pitchers on opening day in each league. I mean, the only other pitcher that might be able to compete with Paul Skeens in terms of talent level is Spencer Strider, who will not be on the opening day roster. He'll be still rehabbing after his UCL surgery. We're going to throw it to a quick break and then bring you back on. But first, Vanessa, have anything to plug before you bid us adieu this afternoon?
I do have my capstone presentation. I have a podcast. It's called More Than the Jersey. You can find it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
Awesome. Thank you very much for coming on this afternoon, Miss Monzo. Again, we're going to throw it to a quick break, then bring you back with some games to watch for the rest of the week. Keep it right here on Between the Lines on 98.7 Rural Radio, the student voice of Piedmont University. Welcome back into Between the Lines on 98.7 Rural Radio. Eric Evanson, your host here with you, getting ready to give you some games to watch for the rest of the week. And, folks, it's March. We haven't had the madness necessarily, which, unpopular opinion, I like it. I love it when the best teams are able to face off against each other. I don't necessarily enjoy it when the Cinderella teams make it to the Elite Eight, because then it just gets into bad basketball. But coming up on Thursday, we got BYU at number 2 Alabama. Then this is all on Thursday, mind you. That'll be at 7:09, also at 7 o'clock, but more in the later part of the hour. 7:39, Maryland will take on Florida, and then at 9:39 in the nightcap, you have Arizona taking on Duke. That's going to be a fantastic one. Arizona's already ruined my bracket, so thanks a lot, Arizona. Really appreciate that. Arkansas will be at Texas Tech at 10:09, and then we've talked about the MLB all day today, so we got to talk about it a little bit more with some heavyweight matchups that are happening this week. Let me go ahead and move over real quick. Sorry, it was on the wrong page there, folks. My apologies. But starting on Thursday, of course, is opening day. And our first game of the season will be the Milwaukee Brewers in the Bronx to face off against the New York Yankees. Those opening day starters are Freddie Peralta versus Carlos Rodon. That'll be at 3 p.m., and you can find it on ESPN right there. So that'll be an interesting series to watch. Baltimore will be at Toronto. That's a battle of the Birds in the AL East. You can definitely see how both of those squads are going to react to each other. And as we scroll down the list, we got Cleveland in Kansas City. Kansas City is going to look to do the same magic they did last year, as I mentioned. And also Cleveland looking to retain that crown for themselves, that AL Central crown, for a bid to get to the postseason. Atlanta will be in San Diego. That's going to be really interesting. That's going to be a great pitching matchup to watch. Chris Sale will be facing off against Michael King. That's the reigning Cy Young versus a guy who I think has the talent to win one at some point. He's got to put it all together. He was fantastic last year. Of course, that's where the Braves season ended last year at the hands of the Padres. Before the Padres season ended about a week later to the national champion, the World Series champion, Los Angeles Dodgers. And then Chicago will be at Arizona. That's a battle for playoff hopefuls. Both those squads missed the playoffs last year. Obviously, the National League champions of 2023 and the Arizona Diamondbacks are looking to get back in. They got pushed out of it due to some game 162 shenanigans due to the Mets and the Braves having one of the best games of all time on a afternoon. That pops up in my feed from time to time. I don't like watching it, obviously, because I'm a little bit of a Braves homer, so I don't like seeing my team lose like that. But either way, that's going to be a great matchup. So again, the key series that I would say watch this weekend for you are Milwaukee and New York facing off. Then you have the Braves and the San Diego Padres, the Cubs and the Diamondbacks, and as well as, let's pick one more here to send you out on this fine Tuesday afternoon. Baltimore and Toronto. That'll be interesting. That'll be a good litmus test to see how the Orioles and the Blue Jays do in their division. Well, folks, thank you for tuning in this week. We'll be at it next week, so make sure you tell a friend, tell a family member. Hey, what I always say every week, don't be afraid to tell a friend of me that you were between the lines. Thank you for tuning in, folks. We will see you next week.
Thanks for tuning in this week on Between the Lines. Tune in next week for another great guest and another great show. Check out the show on Instagram and YouTube at EOTZ Between the Lines. Until next time, everyone, stay safe, make good decisions, watch sports, and as always, have a good one.